Hi everyone, it's Christine here from Ever After Paper Crafts, and I wanted to share with you today a few cards that I made using this adorable Hero Art stamp set. This one is called You Are Fabulous. This was actually an add-on to the May 2017 My Hero card kit. That kit is sold out, but this stamp set, since it was an add-on, is still available through Hero Arts. You can get it at Simon Says Stamp or on the Hero Arts website. I got mine at Simon Says Stamp, but I just loved it. It really reminded me of Audrey Hepburn, Breakfast at Tiffany's, you know, just kind of an old glamour Hollywood. It was really pretty. So I went ahead and created first a very simple card, which I'll show you here. And this was done just simply stamping the main image, except I put sunglasses on her. You have your choice of different mouths. I used this particular mouth down here. I added some sequins and heat embossed with white embossing powder the greeting. So that's just a very simple card. I just wanted to show you how you could quickly whip up a note card set for a girlfriend or something like that very quickly. There's nothing super special about this card, but it is very quick to put together if you're in a hurry. Now these two are a little bit more detailed. They're still relatively simple. They are shaker cards though, so you can hear them shake all the sequins inside of them. This one I created using, again, the main image, except she doesn't have the glasses on this time. And I created a Distress Oxide ink background. And the colors that I used to do that are Broken China and Worn Lipstick. And again, these are the Distress Oxide inks, which are new. Tim Holtz has just come out with these in 12 colors, and they are wonderful. I love them. So I used my blending tool to create the background, spritzed it with some water, stamped the image onto the background, and then I created my shaker card. The sequins that I used I'll show you in a moment, but they're just craft medley sequins. You can get them at My Favorite Things or on Amazon. I also did use some Nuvo drops on the acetate piece for a little bit of interest, and also on the sentiment down here. Those are silver Nuvo drops. And I also heat embossed the You Are Fabulous sentiment with white embossing powder. And then this is the card we're going to make today. This is a simpler but still fun shaker card. It shakes as well. It's a different color pattern, or color scheme rather. This one is Broken China and Cracked Pistachio, again using those Distress Oxide inks. I just created my background same way, spritzed a little water, and then I stamped the image, added some sequins, made the shaker elements, and then heat embossed the sentiment, which says Shine All Day with white embossing powder. And so these are just really fun. They're really not difficult at all. And they're super fun. Who wouldn't love to get a card like this that you can shake and all those sequins go flying? So let's go ahead and get started on creating this card. It's a little simpler, and I thought it would be more conducive to videoing for right now until I get my good video setup going. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to pull out our Misty. And you don't have to use a Misty for this. I am using my Misty because if you notice, the image is a lot of just solid color. And I've noticed sometimes with clear stamps that can be a little harder to get a decent impression. So I use my Misty, so in case I mess up, I can stamp it again right in the same exact place. You do not have to use a Misty though. They are clear see-through stamps, so you could stamp it again by lining it up properly with your clear blocks. I simply cut a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock out with a Lawn Fawn large stitched rectangular die. And I like to use Bristol Smooth when I'm using distress inks. I really think that it just adds, actually, you know what? We need to create our background first. Ignore me. So the first thing that we're going to do is create our background. And we're going to use the Distress Oxide inks for that. And so again, this is Bristol Smooth cardstock that I've just cut out. It's 5.5 by 4 1/4, so an A2 sized rectangle with the stitch marks. And we're going to pull over our distress inks. For this one I use Broken China and Cracked Pistachio. And again, these are the Distress Oxide inks. So they're a little bit different from regular distress inks. They have more of a chalky texture to them. And you can also stamp with them, whereas I never used my other distress inks for actual stamping. So that's a pretty cool technique as well, which I'll have in another video. So I just bought some cheap Velcro squares to put my my circle sponges on the bottom of the ink pads. So let me just get those off. And I just have two blending tools here. So let me go ahead and take the caps off of the ink. All right, so I always start with my my lighter color. So here I'm going to start, my darker color, excuse me. So here I'm going to start with the blue ink, which again is Broken China. So I'm just going to take the sponge dauber, and again, I'm going to start, whenever you're blending, you want to start off of the paper so you don't get a big glob on your cardstock. And I'm just blending this. Now my little circle tool, my little circle sponge is falling apart just a little bit. So forgive me that it's not perfect here. So you're just gonna sort of blend. You know what? We're gonna need to get a new circle dauber because that one has separated itself from the Velcro. Luckily I have them sitting right here. So I will just throw this one away. As you can see, the Velcro stayed, but the circle sponge did not. So we'll just stick a new one on. I always keep plenty of those handy in my craft room for just such an emergency. So we are going to just kind of keep blending this. The Distress Oxides are also so easy to blend. They just, I'm not really pushing down hard. I'm not working this too hard. It's really, really lovely. I really love working with these inks. So I'm just going to come down a little ways here, about halfway down the cardstock or so, maybe a little bit further here. And I just go in a circular motion and just spread the ink around. And now I'm going to come in, pick up my other blending tool, and I'm going to come in with my green. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start from the bottom though, and I'm going to start off the paper and come in circular motions and just kind of blend that up with the blue, the Broken China color. And you'll see it just sort of effortlessly blends here. It just kind of comes, the colors kind of come together. You don't get hard lines. And you don't have to work really hard to do this. I'm really not pushing down hard. I'm not giving my wrist a good workout. It's just happening. So it's really, really nice. And I'm going to go back in with just a little bit more blue and just blend that out a little bit more. Okay, that's looking good. I'm just going to take a little bit more green, blend out the blue I just did, and that should do it for us. Let me pull this up to the camera so you can see. It's just really nice blending. So I really do like these Distress Oxide inks. I still have to play around with them, but so far I am loving them. So I'm just going to take the sponges off really quick and go ahead and put these away. We are done with our Distress Oxide inks. Oops, I'll fix that later. Okay, so we can set the Distress Oxide inks aside. And now we're going to take our spritzer bottle. Mine is just the Distress Sprayer. And we're just going to spray a little bit of water on our inked background. I'm going to let that sit for about 10-15 seconds. And then I'm going to take a paper towel and just simply dab it with the paper towel to sort of sop that water up. And it's going to create a really cool distress effect. And I'll show you in a moment what that's going to look like. And there you go. I just love that technique. Very cool. Okay, so we can take our scratch paper and put that aside. We're done with the inking in terms of the distress inking. So now we're going to pull out our Misty. And what I'm going to do is I have some magnets in here, and I am just going to put the magnets on so this piece stays down. That should do it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my stamp set here, and I'm going to remove the pieces that I want to create my lady. And we are just going to line them up on the paper itself. because then we're just going to pop that lid of the Misty right over, and it will stick right to the Misty, and then we'll be able to stamp it in the exact position that we want. So here's her arm, here's her other arm. That looks good, I think. Let me look at it head on. Let me just move her lips over just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so we put the lid down of our Misty. Pick it up. Now, to get a really good black, you can use any black ink that you have on hand in your craft room. I'm going to use VersaFine Onyx Black ink. It's one of my favorite inks for getting a really crisp, dark black ink. I'm going to ink that up. And then you simply shut the door of your Misty, push down, and voila. Now see, I didn't get up top there as well as I should have, at the top of her hair and her crown. And that's what's so great about the Misty. I can just go back in, it's staying in place, I can ink it up again, push it down, and there you go. She's absolutely perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this from my Misty, and then set the Misty aside. And now we are ready to go ahead and create all the components to our shaker card. So let's just move the Misty aside here. I'm going to set this panel aside just so that it can dry. And I'm going to bring over all the components to create a shaker card. And I'm going to show you how I did this. I didn't want to take time for the video to show all the cutting. So I'm going to show you exactly which dies I use to create these different parts that I'm going to use. You can use any dies that you have on hand in your craft room and just adjust the size accordingly depending on what dies that you have. So the first thing that I did, of course, is, again, we cut this panel out, I mentioned, with the Lawn Fawn Stitch Large Rectangle die at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so standard A2 size. I cut a piece of acetate, which is just clear transparency. I got mine at an office supply store years ago, and I'm still working on that pack. I know they have acetate on Amazon as well. Acetate's kind of a fancy term. It's really just, back in, at least when I was in school, they didn't have all the fancy technology that they do today, so they would use overhead projectors and write on these and stuff like that, like it was a blackboard kind of. So that's all that this is. It's just a transparency sheet. So I cut it out with the same size die as I did our inked up panel. So I cut that out with the same rectangle die, which is this one, and it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 stitched rectangle die. So those two were cut out like that. I cut out a frame with the rectangular stitch dies by taking this one and running them through the Big Shot, just like that. You can tape them down with washi tape or post-it note tape, and you will create this little square open frame. I also created this scalloped one by taking a scallop rectangle die. Mine happens to be Lawn Fawn. You can use whatever you have. And I put the next to largest rectangle inside of it, ran it through the Big Shot, and that gave me this. So it's just a rectangular with scalloped open frame. And those are the only pieces that you are going to need for this particular card design. So let's go ahead and grab our adhesive now, and we're going to put this together. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my adhesive, and I am going to put some adhesive on this scalloped open frame. And forgive me, I don't have my good camera set up like I'd like just yet. So if my arm gets in the frame, like too much, I apologize. It's still a work. My craft room is still a work in progress. Okay, so now that I've got that adhesive on this frame, we're just going to stick it on the normal rectangular, non-scalloped, open rectangular frame. So it looks like this. It's a little hard to see, it's white on white, but it's just that scalloped piece on top of the regular rectangular piece. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the acetate sheet and we're going to adhere that to this. So turn this piece upside down so you have your scalloped upside down. That's going to be the front, and I only did that scallop piece to give it a little bit of an extra pleasing to the eye look, I guess you could say, a little bit of interest. But you could just use the open rectangle frame. You don't have to use the scallop if you don't want to. There's no magic in that, nothing special about it. I just did it so it would give it a little bit of an extra pizzazz, if you will. So turn it over. If you have the scallop on top, turn it over so it's upside down, and then you're going to take your adhesive and you're going to put adhesive on the back of the rectangle. Okay, and then you're going to take your acetate sheet and stick that right down, like so. So now you have what's going to be the top of your card, what's going to show the shaker underneath, the shaker bits underneath. Now what you want to do is pull over a card base. I use Nina 110-pound white cardstock for my card bases. It's a very thick, really nice, heavyweight cardstock for the base of cards. And I'm going to go ahead and stick my inked panel down. Now it's the same size as the card base, which is what you want, or what I wanted for this particular design. Again, there's so many different designs for shaker cards. For this particular design only, I wanted my back panel to be the same size as my card base. So I'm just going to take some adhesive and stick that down onto my card base. Just stick it down straight, cover up that card base. Okay, there you go. Now set this aside. And next what we're going to do is we're going to put foam tape around this rectangle, right up against where it meets the acetate, where the white paper meets the acetate. And what I'm going to use is something that Stampin' Up! Actually came out with, and it's phenomenal. They come in these big packages. They're foam adhesive strips, and they are meant just for shaker cards. Well, not just for. There's obviously other things you could use them for, but they were designed for shaker cards. Now, you can use whatever you have on hand. If you have those big rolls of foam tape, you can fold them up on themselves and then cut it to make smaller strips. You can really use anything that you have. But since I happen to have these on hand and I really like working with these, I'm going to go ahead and use these long foam strips from Stampin' Up! So all you do is you just peel it off the packet. Well, this isn't the packaging, but the base of the product, I guess you could say. And then I'm just going to work my way around this rectangle. Now you don't want your foam tape to go to show through the acetate. So you just want to go right up against where the acetate meets the paper. Let me just make sure I'm on. Nope, I'm not on camera. I'm sorry about that. So you're just going to start like right here and go like that. And then I'm going to cut right here. Now, I'm going to keep going around the card, just like this, just following that line. And we'll stop there, and we'll just cut this little portion off at the top since it went over the edge there. Now I'm going to take another strip off and just continue doing the same thing. Just keep going around this rectangle. Cut here. And also when you're doing this, you want to make sure there are no gaps in your foam tape. So when you're going to a new direction or a new side, you want to make sure it butts right up against the foam tape. Okay, so now this is what it's going to look like from the front. So see, you cannot see the foam tape through the front, but there it is on the back. Okay. Let me just, this is a little funky. Let me just fix this really quick. There we go. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to fill this with our shaker sequins. This is the little package that I mentioned I have from Craft Medley. It's blues and greens, a little bit of turquoise. So we are just going to fill this up with shaker goodness, I like to call it. And it doesn't matter. You just put as many as you like. I kind of like when I'm doing large areas of shakers, I kind of like to do, you know, quite a few. So that looks good to me. Now what I should have done, and I just forgot, well, before I put the sequins in, I'm going to go ahead and do it now. I'm going to take my powder tool And this is what you would use for heat embossing before you would stamp with a Versamark. But I'm going to take it and I'm going to go around the edge here so that none of the sticky from the foam tape will, you know, stick, is on the inside and will stick to the sequins. So now that I've done that, it's time to go ahead and take the tape backing off of the foam tape. Okay, there we go. And now we're simply going to bring our panel over and stick it down on top of the shaker element that we just created. So all you want to do is bring it around and stick it straight down. And there you go. Oops, I got one stuck right there. Okay, and there's your shaker card. Isn't that cute? So I hope that this was helpful. I'm not going to take time to do the sentiment today since this video is already really long. But here's the original that I created. And I just added that shine all day sentiment from the stamp set. And then here is the card that we just made on camera. I was very intimidated at first with shaker cards. They just seemed very complicated, but you know, I just started playing around and I really thought this card was a good idea. This image rather would make a great shaker card because she's classy and she's fabulous and she deserves some sparkle, right? So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed today's video and today's cards. Here's another one that I did using the worn lipstick and the broken china distress ink. And again, this stamp set's great for all sorts of cards. This is my very simple card that I did. So I hope that this was inspiring and you found this video helpful. And if you did like the video or you have any suggestions for me, please give me a thumbs up or leave me a comment. I would love to hear from you. And thanks so much again for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.